Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Cortez, and we will go through a book review of The HR Value Proposition by Dave Ulrich and Wayne Brockbank. I chose this book because of the influence Dave Ulrich has had on David C. Foreman, the author of Fearless HR. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it for HR professionals. Anyhow, let's get started. First, we're going to discuss the main idea and importance of the book and why you might want to consider investing time in reading it. Second, I'm going to dive into chapter 5 to review its contribution to talent management. We take a very deep dive, but even then still leave out a lot of valuable information. Number 3, next I will cover the book's strengths and weaknesses, considering the practicality of its chapters and the usability of its information. Then I will share my personal favorite chapters, insights, and data. Finally, I'll provide recommendations for HR business partners and talent management practitioners. So main idea. The main idea is neatly woven into all 12 chapters of this book, with the majority of the content providing practical initiatives for HR professionals. The crux is found in defining value and states that value is defined by the receiver more than the giver. It challenges HR professionals to assess value in the eyes of stakeholders. HR deliverables to stakeholders are more important than keeping HR tasks well organized. We will review the business impact later in this book review, but for now, the idea to grasp is for HR professionals to take on a business and results mindset in light of creating value. To do so, one must learn the value of internal stakeholders, line managers and employees, and external stakeholders, investors, and customers. Let's take a look at importance. You're probably thinking, as I did before reading the book, I can be business-minded. I can create value for my stakeholders, right? Well, there's no need to reinvent the wheel, especially the Wheel of Fortune. Very fun. Value is important to you in the context that the book meets HR professionals where they are. HR generalists, specialists, or executives are highlighted. It meets you outside of administrative duties and focuses on HR deliverables by answering these sets of questions. How does HR help to build, not just measure intangible value? Question number 2, how do we create a line of sight between a business strategy and HR? Number 3, how can we develop more capable HR professionals and departments to do all this? Using the CIA method, in each chapter, you get the concept, illustration, and application. In addition, this book provides 12 assessments, 14 exhibits, 9 figures, and 14 table charts to understand, assess, organize, and learn how to apply these strategies. This book's contribution to talent management can be found in Chapter 5, Flow of People and Performance. It first assesses where you are and asks accordingly. Remember the definition of value when answering the following question. If you're an HR generalist, what value will you create? If you're an HR specialist, what will you focus on? And if you're an HR executive, where should your team focus on? Now that we know as individuals what we will work on, let's take a look at HR groupings. Starting with number 1, flow of people. Well, an overview is that talent comes from the flow of people in an organization and how they enter, develop their skills, and move through, whether it's up or out of the organization. In addition, talent management involves not only getting and keeping the good talent, but also identifying and removing the non-essential and outright bad. Grouping number 2, flow of performance. Well, when standards and incentives align with the company goals, the goals generally come within reach. So let's set standards. The book asks thoroughly and goes through the following: what to measure, how to build a measurement system, and how to build appraisal system. And the last 2 groupings are flow of information and flow of work, which is covered in Chapter 6. So far, we've covered what you should focus on, HR's perspective in the 4 groupings. Now let's cover designing and delivering. But before we jump in, let me ask you this important question. Why did the spider get the job in IT? Because she was a great web designer. I'm 2 for 2 now on my dad jokes. Anyhow, circling back on designing and delivery through theory, choice, and action, let's see how this book outlines the practicality. Starting with theory. Theory explains why this investment in training will create value for the organization's key stakeholders. Choice, you want to create multiple choice of HR practices and assess the relative value each will contribute to key stakeholders. A seasoned HR professional should skim through these practices and review areas for improvement. If you're an entering HR professional, you should learn and master practices and their outcomes. Lastly, action. Develop an action plan for implementation using the ART acronym: action, resources, responsibility, timing, and tracking. Following these questions, what will be done? What resources are required to do it? Who will do it? When will it be done? Who will follow up and how? The last item on this slide is the audit for people flow. There are 6 people practices or talent management practices: buy, build, borrow, bounce, bind, and boost. You should first assess to help you determine how you're doing and on what focus to get more from your people practices. Then review which ideas on your people menu will create intangible value for shareholders and leaders to share with customers, deliver organization capabilities, and ensure individual abilities. There is much more to cover for talent management, but hopefully I've piqued your interest with just that snippet. Let's move on to strengths. Let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the book. The biggest strength is found in the study in Chapter 10, HR competencies that make a difference. Michigan Business School ran a 16-year study in 4 phases. The data includes 360-degree surveys from thousands of HR professionals, 28,000 HR clients, a wide range of industries and worldwide locations, including North America, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. Information input revealed 5 competencies and their impact on the business environment, as shown in the pie chart. Personal credibility, 23%, business knowledge, 11%, delivery, 18%, strategic contribution, 43%, very big on that, and HR technologies, 5%. The purpose of the competencies is to predict performance, specify needs for performance, and drive strategy and integrate management practice. Key takeaways from the study include the major impact of strategic decision-making, which is then split into 4 subgroups in the book: cultural management, fast change, strategic decision-making, and market-driven connectivity. Now let's talk about weaknesses. I would like to highlight chapters 8 and 9. Chapter 8 reviews tips for creating the 3 HR roles in organizations: single businesses, functional HR, holding company, dedicated HR, and diversified businesses, shared services HR. It also discusses transformation HR, but is inly supported, includes 1 figure, has short example stories, and is mainly more informative than practical steps like previous chapters. Going into chapter 9, synthesis of roles for HR professionals and the evolution of HR roles. I found it to be a great learning opportunity, but impractical in the sense of HR initiatives and business outcomes. Nevertheless, the chapters are well written and provide important fundamental knowledge for HR professionals. Now let's talk about my personal favorite topics. My favorite chapter, chapter 7, discusses building an HR strategy. The process includes identifying the organization's unit and organizing the workshop, prioritizing the trends in business environment. It talks about specifying the source of competitive advantage and the measurement for each source. It goes into defining the desired cultural capabilities and behavioral expressions of those cultural capabilities. They mentioned Disney there. Very fun. And developing, number 5, and developing an overall implementation plan. Moreover, it provides a framework for a cultural capability-based HR strategy, which you can see in the exhibit there. Now, this is extremely important as it leans on high-performing firms studied and their HR logic on a clear understanding of their desired corporate culture. To add more value, the HR competency study found that HR agenda with the greatest impact on business performance is a cultural-based HR strategy. Now, I will leave you with this cliffhanger following chapter 11, which covers developing HR professionals. This chapter covers a 1-year game plan and a roadmap to an HR education integration. These 9 learning events have programs that include linking HR business to strategy, developing key organization and capabilities, programming and reflection on HR leadership roles, and learning activities for 5 competency domains. Now, within those competency domains, it's split into domain, activities, and various authors to learn more. So a lot of content. Moreover, these are my favorite chapters because they give me tools that I can use to develop myself and others throughout my HR career and in any industry. Very applicable. My recommendations, I recommend this book for HR business partners, specifically for using performance management tools, strategic planning, assessment, and understanding stakeholders. I also recommend it to talent management practitioners in connection with career development and retention strategies. Very important. It goes through a few steps of retention strategies that I found to be very useful even for myself now. I do want to jump into some questions for you. As we come to a close, please answer these questions for the discussion portion. Number 1, why is understanding the value of internal and external stakeholders important? Question number 2, which of the 5 competencies can you develop further? At the very end, thank you so much for your time. I hope you'll consider investing in this book, which paints a blueprint for HR professionals of all levels to drive business results and develop their careers. Thanks.